Welcome to Expressions of Leadership. I'm your host, Michele Kawamoto Perry. In every episode, we explore how people from educators and artists to executives and entrepreneurs lead with authenticity, rise through adversity, and share the wisdom they've gained along the way. Today, we're honored to have Dr. Diana Hoppe as our guest. Dr. Hoppe is a board-certified OBGYN, menopause and perimenopause expert, best-selling author, and founder of Amazing Over 40, a physician-led telemedicine and wellness platform. She's also a breast cancer survivor whose personal journey deeply shapes her mission. Welcome, Dr. Hoppe. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Let's start from the beginning because your path into medicine wasn't exactly a straight line. You originally wanted to be a veterinarian, but life had other plans. What drew you toward medicine and ultimately women's health?
Great question. Well, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. I was focused on going to like UC Davis Veterinary School because that's in California. I was raised in LA. And then I actually went to school undergrad at Berkeley. And while at Berkeley, I worked at the Women's Health Center there, and I was a contraceptive counselor. And then with that, I worked with the nurse practitioners and saw what they were doing. And at that time, there were not that many women in women's health, like OBGYN or women's health as a family practice, let's say. And so I really kind of shifted my ways and said, let me go toward medical school instead of veterinary school. So I loved animals, but then I got I really felt I needed to have a mission to help more women since we didn't have that many women in medicine at that time.
Now, you went to UC San Diego for medical school. Also, you did your internship there and residency. What were some of the defining lessons from those early years, especially balancing research, practice, and leadership in a large medical institution like that?
Yeah, it was challenging because at that time, this was a long time ago, was when the hours are very different for residency and internship. So we would do like 36-hour shifts, which are brutal. And now they've limited to 12 hours, which I think is much more sane. But at the time, they felt like in order to get the real experience and expertise in, let's say, OBGYN, we had to do overnights and sometimes up to 36-hour shifts. So you really got to have to learn resilience and also have to have a desire to really do it. Because at times I felt like I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This is too difficult, and I'll be honest, at the time I was seeing a therapist because I was going through a lot of challenges with getting through medical school and then residency. And he basically told me, well, you can always stop. And it made me kind of think, yes, I could always stop, but I'm not going to stop because I've invested so much and I want to do this. So it kind of actually gave me more propulsion or more impetus to pursue and continue and just say, you know what, I'll get through it. It will eventually have an end point because it is hard on you when you have sleep deprivation and it's just very grinding on the whole body and mind. So I learned a lot about resilience and also perseverance. If I had to do it again, that's an interesting question because I don't know. Because there's a lot of other things I could have done that weren't as brutal. But at the time, that's just how the system was. And being a woman in kind of a more male-dominated system like the UCSD San Diego, there are mostly male surgeons, male attendings, etc. So you kind of felt like as a woman, you had to always do double the work and double as hard as the male counterparts that we were working with.
Where did you get that resilience and grit to keep you on track?
Yeah, that's I find that an interesting question too, because I wonder how I did it. I'm the youngest of four children, and my parents were both immigrants from Germany. So we were really taught about the work ethic and really to striving and getting the goals that you want. And I think my mother was very instrumental in getting me to have that kind of focus and just desire to go for what you want. And so I was somewhat of a competitive person too. And so, nothing was going to stop me. And yes, there were times when I definitely wanted to just say, enough of this, screw this, I'm out of here type thing. But I said, no, in the long run, it will pay off. So sometimes you have to kind of deny the short-term gratification for the long-term potential rewards.
Now, before starting your own practice, you worked locum tenens, essentially traveling as a physician, providing services at different hospitals and clinics. What did you learn from that experience?
That was a wonderful experience. I had a friend who had done it and she really liked it. So I said, well, let me go do it because I had finished my residency and there were some job opportunities there, but they weren't really thrilling to me. I just felt like I needed a little more exposure to different um, states, different kind of way they practiced. So I did locum tenens, which was a great opportunity to travel across the United States. And I would fill in for about a month at different practices. So I went to Bismarck, North Dakota, which was also, that was in August, though. It wasn't in the winter. Because I think the winter would have been even more challenging. It was wonderful, though. The people were great. And you just have to be flexible because they all have different protocols and paperwork and things that you had to get used to, which was also something I wanted to work on because I can get a little bit regimented and a little controlling. And so if you get thrown into certain situations where you don't have as much control, you have to be adapted to the situation. So I went to Bismarck, North Dakota. Then I went to Newport, Vermont. And then I was in Winona, Minnesota. And then I went up to Salinas, California. So I went to different parts of the country, and it was really great because you met people, you could see parts of the country. And at the time, my mom visited me every time I went somewhere. So it's kind of nice because she got like a little break to go on a vacation. And so we kind of hung out for a weekend or two when I was out at different spots.
And what different perspectives did you end up getting as a leader in all of these different spots?
I think as a leader, respect for everyone that you're working with. I mean, that's one of the things in the hospital that I learned early that everyone's important, from the person that cleans the floor to the head, the CEO of the hospital, right? So I've always been the part that really appreciates people at whatever level they're doing because they're essential to having the whole system work. So as a leadership, I think it's respect and really appreciation for all those in different realms of what they practice. Because I think sometimes we can have different judgments about different people based on what their job is, et cetera. And I think that I always would like after a C-section and things had to be cleaned up, I'd always thank the staff that came in to like, mop the floor or clean the room and do stuff because it's like they're essential for us to be able to do what we do. And they need to be valued and acknowledged.
And in 2010, you launched your own practice. What did you want to do differently from the system that you left behind?
Yes, I'm not really a good employee and I don't like to follow rules specifically that don't make sense. And so at the time I was running my practice, which at this point was a pretty big practice. I had four doctors, OBGYNs, there was nurse practitioners, medical assistants, ultrasound technicians, et cetera. And I was pretty much running the practice. So I was a doctor as well as administrator. And as you know, anyone in administration, it's not a really easy job when you're trying to run a good ship, let's say. And so I was kind of, there was a good cop, bad cop kind of thing going on with me and my partner, and it was fine. But I got to the point where I'm like, I want to do medicine. I don't want to be overseeing people to this degree. And part of it might have been my own personality type, micromanaging, et cetera. But I just got to the point where I didn't want to deal with insurance companies anymore. I didn't want to deal with personnel issues and like realizing that economics, like your salary will go down if the expenses are going up and we don't have the revenue. And that's hard for sometimes for some practitioners to understand unless they look at the numbers, right? So you're kind of like a bad cop in that situation. Not that, how do I say that? You have to police people in a way. And sometimes that's not really a fun thing to do. And I was losing my kind of passion for helping women in medicine. I needed to get out of the rut of insurance and what you get paid and then overseeing people and managing just a system that I really didn't want to do. I wanted to see patients and to deal with the medical aspect, not necessarily all the business. So then I went on my own, which, yes, I still had to do the business aspect of it, but it was much easier because it was just me and, like, let's say my receptionist and a medical assistant rather than overseeing like 30 people. It's like three people, which is very much less stress and easier to handle. Unfortunately, in 2010, as you might remember, 2008, things crashed and everyone was, so it wasn't a great time to kind of make your own practice and go on your own. But I said, well, if it doesn't work, if I go bankrupt or whatever, if I can't make it work and make a living, I'd find something else I can do. So it's always been like pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just do it. And if it doesn't work, you find another way or go to plan B, find a different route to go. But with me and my perseverance, I did make it work. And so then I expanded to Nevada doing telemedicine out of my house, which was much less stress than having an office practice. So that was huge. And part of my motivation was for that was I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer in 2018. And then my mom had dementia and I moved her down to San Diego and she passed in 2021. So those were kind of markers in my life that made me say, now's the time to make a move if you want to do a move. And that was post-COVID too. We were in COVID during that time too. So I think a lot of people had reflections on their life during that time and what do they really want to do. And I really didn't need the office anymore. I love my office. I love my patients, but I needed to change. And so I said, if you're going to do it, do it. So of course
Mhm.
I went to Nevada, not thinking I'd ever come to Nevada, but I love it here. I live in that place called Lake Las Vegas. It's beautiful, and I'm really blessed to be here.
All those choices built the foundation of your leadership journey. And as you said, a few years later, life delivered a wake up call that changed everything. We're going to get more into that right after this short break. Stay with us. True transformation starts from within. The Forward Project partners with organizations to create meaningful culture shifts and develop leaders who inspire real change. If your team is ready to move forward with purpose, visit www.theforwardproject.co. You're listening to Expressions of Leadership. I'm Michele Kawamoto Perry in conversation with Dr. Diana Hoppe, OBGYN, author, and founder of Amazing Over 40. As you mentioned earlier, you faced breast cancer while also caring for your mother who had dementia back in 2018. You described that time as a wake-up call, a moment to slow down and practice what you preach. How did those experiences change your approach to leadership, medicine, and life?
So, yes, in 2018, it was on a screening mammogram that they found this, what they call asymmetry, which was like an abnormality. Then I had a biopsy and et cetera. It turned out, long story short, was stage 1 breast cancer. I ended up having a lumpectomy and radiation. And during this time, my mom was getting pretty ill with her dementia and she was hospitalized and she needed now to leave her house in Mammoth Lakes, California. And I had to move her to San Diego to a memory care. So that was happening all around the same time I was getting diagnosed. And the diagnosis of breast cancer was somewhat jolting because I'm the doctor and I shouldn't be the patient, right? We always think we're immune. And yes, we preach all these things that patients should do, but I wasn't really following those things either. I wasn't practicing self-care. I was very stressed. I was doing 24/7, go, 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 thinking that I could be Wonder Woman and manage 5 million things, right? And it's not possible. And so I had to tell myself, okay, stop. And cancer is the final thing that got me to stop and look at what I was doing and say, okay, if you don't make a change, this is going to get you, right? I mean, this could have been a lot worse. I mean, I could have been a different stage of cancer, gone through chemotherapy, etc. So I was blessed in that way that it was early diagnosis. Yet the diagnosis of cancer is something that I didn't associate with me, right? Like I am a doctor, I shouldn't get sick. I am, immune to illness, right? When in reality, we all are susceptible to getting sick if we don't listen to our bodies. And that's why I'm so passionate about self-care and women really putting themselves as a higher priority because we tend to put ourselves lower in the list. Our families are higher, our parents that we're taking care of, the children, our jobs, etc. And we don't put enough emphasis on what we need and what the basic things we need to nourish and feed our souls and keep our health at optimal levels. So breast cancer was interesting because it was a wake-up call, but also it made me see how I was not immune and I was still susceptible and I am human. I am not this superhuman. And as leaders, we have to also acknowledge that we are all together in this kind of team, right? We are not above someone, we're alongside the people that we are trying to support and inspire. And so now when I have women with breast cancer come see me, I can relate to them in a level that I wouldn't have been able to had I not been diagnosed. Now, do I want the diagnosis? No. But in retrospect, it really was a healthy and helpful thing because it made me stop and really look at my life and what I was doing. So sometimes we're on autopilot, right? We get in this kind of rut and we just go, go, go and not think what we're really doing. And I had like wake up calls, like, how do you say, more quiet wake up calls prior to that. Like my body was telling me in whispers what was happening, but I didn't listen because it's like, oh, I get eczema on my hands. Oh, I have a rash. Oh, I'm a little stressed. But not till I got the diagnosis of the breast cancer did I finally take real heart to saying, okay, your body needs self-care. You cannot continue like this. This is not healthy. And how can you be a doctor preaching this when you yourself are experiencing it? So it was very interesting scenario that's like irony, life just giving you a curveball. But in the end, I'm grateful.
And one thing that you've said is that you believe your breast cancer was stress related and that ignoring your body's early messages led to that thunderstorm moment. How do you now guide your patients and yourself to listen earlier before crisis hits?
I love that question. Because this is another passion of mine is how to like wake up others about what's going on. Stress, as we know, it definitely can cause cancer. Okay, there's studies that have shown this. Unfortunately, I think the medical field doesn't put enough emphasis on how stress impacts the body, how negatively stress can impact. Now, when I talk about stress, I'm talking chronic stress. I'm talking like people who every day feel like they have the lion chasing them, right? Acute stress is when you try to deal with a situation like fight or flight, when it's supposed to be a survival method, which is absolutely needed, right? So if we're in a situation that dictates that we have to survive, we're going to go into a fight or flight mode and do what's necessary. The problem is when we see that anxious and chronic stress full time, 24/7, over time, over years, we know it can cause increased inflammation, and inflammation can cause cancer, heart disease, diabetes, a lot of other disorders. And when I spoke to my doctors at the time with my breast cancer, I said, I think this is stress related. And I didn't get a lot of positive feedback about that theory because I think that I don't, we're supposed to be superhumans. We're supposed to be able to do everything 24/7 and stress is something like sometimes it's a badge of honor when I don't see it as that. I think stress is needed in some situations to motivate, but chronic stress and everyday feeling like, "Oh my God, how am I going to pay the bills? What am I going to do about my family? What am I going to do about this?" And it's just this kind of anxiety that sometimes we don't even see and acknowledge it because, we're immune because we're robots. We're just going through the day. And this is normal. Everyone else is doing it, so why am I'm doing it too? So it's like society is kind of in this cosmos of, well, you're supposed to work this hard and you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to be able to take them to soccer practice and you're supposed to want to have sex at night with your husband and you're supposed to, when it's like, no, that's not going to happen.
I hear you saying that many women in leadership roles struggle to balance care for others and also their self-care because, as you said, we have to be superhuman. So how do you help them to recognize that self-neglect isn't actually noble, it's dangerous?
Right. It's really getting back to the basics of getting enough sleep, making sure that, and then making sure the relationship is not toxic. Like if they're having struggles with their husband, maybe go to counseling. If they're not taking themselves nutritionally, what are they eating? What are they putting in their body? What are they putting on their body? What chemicals are they doing? Like toxins. We have toxins all around us, right? And so how can we minimize those toxins? There's a great site, ewg.org, Environmental Working Group, and they have a lot of good resources about toxins in our environment and how to decrease those. Because I don't think we really acknowledge that enough in the United States, like pesticides, plastics, etc. But it's also like basic hydration. A lot of women don't get enough water. They don't get enough hydration and they don't get good sleep because they are doing like their quiet time is once the kids have done their homework, they're in bed, and the only time they have maybe to breathe and maybe sit by themselves is like, 10 or 11 at night. They don't go to bed and they got to get up early. So it's like you can't relegate, you got to put yourself first sometimes. And that's why I say put it in your calendar. Like make a massage time, make a time where you go out with your friends for lunch or whatever, afternoon walk. Go for a walk. That's always great. Being social with your girlfriends or your friends, you know, and really because they've shown for women it increases oxytocin, which is the peace hormone. It's the calming hormone. So when you go on a walk with some friends or one friend or a group, you're going to be releasing oxytocin. And that's the bonding hormone. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel safe. It makes your stress level get way lower. So I always try to encourage women to decrease their stress in whatever way that is. Maybe it's not run to Starbucks at 3 in the afternoon because you need that jolt. It's like, well, maybe we'll get better sleep. Maybe we can have delegate some of these things to your kids or your husband to do. You don't have to do 5 million chores. Maybe get a housekeeper or maybe get someone to help you do some stuff. If your resources allow it, like what can we do? Simple, basic things to make your life easier. Because I think women, we just put it on ourselves like we have to do this. I mean, there's no other option. It's like, well, let's think of some other possibilities that we can actually take care of you rather than make you be the only one responsible for the finances and the medical care and, organizing all these things. There's different ways we can make it so that you don't have the world on your shoulders. You don't have to be Atlas. You can actually delegate, and sometimes responsibility can go to others in your household.
And you often talk about role modeling wellness. How does leadership in health begin with living your own message?
Well, as leaders, we have to be models of behavior, right? I mean, I think that if we say something, we have to live it. And so, but practice what we preach, literally. And so now, as I moved to Nevada and kind of took away some of the stressors I had had when I was in San Diego, I realized I'm taking much better care of myself and I'm balancing my social life, my exercise, having fun. Some of us don't have fun. Like when I ask some of my patients, what do you do for fun? They say, well, what is fun? Right? We've lost fun. And we need to bring fun back in. And I was doing the Artist Way book club, which is a book called The Artist Way. It's Julie Cameron. Wonderful book. And it goes to playfulness and creativity and being like a kid again and just being not having all the pressure that we put on ourselves and being able to like do an artist date where you might just go out to the beach and walk on the beach and be by yourself or maybe take a painting class or whatever you want to do, but find something that makes you happy, something that lights you up, because we sometimes just see everything's dark and we don't have an option and life is just like this. And we have to open up our minds as leaders to say, no, there are options. There's light at the end of this tunnel, and we have more light that's coming in. We just got to let that light come in and see our options. Because when someone feels hopeless, that's really a sad thing when there is hope in every situation, no matter how bad it is.
Yeah, I completely hear what you're saying about finding those moments of joy and also finding those ways to bond with other women and friends. I recently did that with some friends of mine, and we went to a fair and we even got our faces painted, and it was a lot of fun and it felt great.
Yeah, so imagine if you could do that every month or maybe once a week, potentially,
Mhm.
rather than once every blue moon. Right?
Mhm.
Actually incorporate it, saying, I'm going to go out with some friends and find some activities like that, fairs, art shows, different things that you can go and meet other people also that have similar interests to you.
Dr. Hoppy, you have clearly been a role model to others. I'm curious, who has been your mentor or role model in health, leadership, and life? And what leadership qualities from that person do you carry forward?
I think my mother had a very big role in how I made my decision to do what I want to do and have the confidence to keep going. She was an immigrant, as I mentioned, from Berlin, and she was very young when World War II had started in Germany. And so she had to go get food for her family and wait in the lines for the bread and the milk and the water and things they needed. And so she really instilled like you're that I'm lucky to have what I have, right? When you were raised in a time where you don't know if you're going to make it to the next day because you don't know if there's food on the table, and then they had to go to the trash cans to look for food. I mean, it was so bad that they had to scrape up things in order to make survival to survive those days. And so when she told me those stories, it really hits you like, wow, I mean, I have food on the table. I'm able to breathe without someone shooting a missile over here. I mean, I know it sounds very intense, which it was for her, but she just kind of really it put into me the thought of no matter what, you can get through it. And no matter what, if it means you're scrapping things off the floor because that's, the food that they leave out from the neighborhood or whatever it is, you're going to survive. And as leaders, we have to always be inspiring our not as our not our group, our tribe, whatever you want to call our following, the people that are surrounding us that are looking to us to say there will be a way that we can make this better. Even though many people will say, "Oh no, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't." The leaders are the ones that have to say, yes, we can. And this is what we need to do. And then lead the people to where they need to do what they need to do, rather than say, well, too bad, we're done. It's over. That's not a leader. A leader is someone who's going to have to take some courage, confidence, and inspire others to actually follow and walk beside them in achieving the communal goal that they want to achieve.
And those lessons transform not just how you practice medicine, but also how you empower others. After the break, we'll look at how Amazing Over 40 is helping women lead fuller, more balanced lives from the inside out. Leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about people. The Forward Project helps organizations cultivate strong, adaptable leaders who create thriving workplace cultures. If you're ready to invest in your leadership team, visit www.theforwardproject.co to learn how. This is Expressions of Leadership. I'm Michele Kawamoto Perry, and we're diving into how Dr. Diana Hoppe is redefining leadership in women's health and wellness. Dr. Hoppe, what inspired you to create Amazing Over 40, and what makes it different from traditional medical practices?
I started Amazing Over 40 because I didn't really see a lot of platforms online that helped women understand what's happening to their bodies as we get through our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And so I was doing clinical trials at one time, and I wrote a book about women and sex drive. And then I started doing a lot more perimenopause, menopause. And I realized how little information there was about this to women. And now I think we're getting more as a lot of celebrities are talking about perimenopause and menopause. But I started Amazing Over 40 over 10 years ago, and it's always been to educate, inspire, and motivate women to understand their bodies, what's happening, and what they can do while these things are happening. So rather than doctors saying, well, it's normal, just live through it, or, your labs are great, I'm not going to treat you, or take an antidepressant or have a glass of wine and just deal with it, those aren't really helpful answers. And so with my website, it's a platform where women can go to and get blog posts and get webinars and be able to access real, true information. Because unfortunately, we still have a lot of misinformation based on that one trial, the Women's Health Initiative, that came out in July of 2002. And that was that big study that looked at hormone therapy and said it causes breast cancer and heart attack and stroke, and et cetera. Well, the problem is they had a lot of flaws in that study, and it misled a lot of women and have them stop their hormone therapy. And now there's still women who think they can't take hormones if they have breast cancer, or they have a family history of breast cancer, or some other reason that the doctor says, well, you can't do it because of XYZ, or you have to stop after 10 years. That's not really based on true, accurate science. And every individual needs to talk to their physician as a one-to-one basis and figure out what's the best plan for her, given her family history, personal history, etc. But I had breast cancer and I am on hormone therapy because I've done research and I realized for me, the benefits outweigh the risks. And that's everything in life. We have to say kind of what's the risk benefit ratio. And there may be some people say, well, you're crazy. How are you doing that? No. And I say, I look at my own studies, I do my research. And sometimes, oh, you have to be your own advocate. That's something also I learned with the breast cancer. I needed to be my own advocate as a physician and a patient. I had to be my own advocate and say, this is what I believe I need to do for me, because they wanted to put me on an aromatase inhibitor, which a lot of breast cancer patients do. I'm not saying that's necessarily a wrong thing, but for me, I knew what the side effects were, and the benefit was not worth the risk that would happen if I were to go that route. So I chose not to, which was a little bit like the oncologist was not happy with that. But we have to make our best decisions for us, and also look at the percentage of recurrence and things like that. And so for me, I knew what some of the things would happen if you take all the estrogen away from your body. Yes, it will decrease potentially the risk of recurrence, but at what cost? You can have hot flashes, night sweat, brain fog, mood swings, irritability, bone loss, brain issues, cardiovascular. So I don't think we really put enough on what are the true benefits of hormone therapy. I think we've had been kind of the pendulum has swung to the other side, and I think now we need to get more in the middle and kind of say, okay, what are the true pros and cons, and what patients need hormone therapy and what who may not. So I really try to educate women so that they can have the best information and then make a choice, rather than being more saying you have to do this or you have to do that. Because I think that, unfortunately, the old system where patients would say, the doctor told me to do this, right? Well, and right now I think, being your own advocate is really critical in patient care these days.
You describe something called the perimenopause paradox, that women expect to be at the top of their game, yet their bodies are telling a different story. How do you help them reconcile that and lead from a place of self-understanding?
So the perimenopause paradox is exactly what you said. It's the time of your life you should be feeling your best, right? You're normally like pretty good in your job and your corporate position, etc. But now your hormones are changing. It's kind of like when you went through puberty, but now it's the opposite. So what you're getting, your body was starting to have your menstrual cycles. Now it's fading the other way, where your ovaries are running out of follicles or eggs. And when they do that, they start having really severe hormonal fluctuations. Perimenopause is the 2 to 8 years prior to menopause. And menopause is just defined as 12 months without a cycle, a period. So perimenopause precedes the time where they classify as menopause. And that can be a time where you might be in a board meeting, presenting, or doing, let's say, a podcast. And you just asked a question and you don't remember what that question was. Or you forgot the one word that's elemental in that question that you said, wait, I know that word. Starts with T. It's got 3 syllables. I just can't get that word. And it's very common. And so some women think they're losing their brains. They literally think they're losing their ability to function. And I've had some women say, they had to decrease their hours because they're worried about their job, or that they didn't want to go for the higher position because what if they were getting these lapses in memory, or they couldn't focus as well, or they weren't able to perform at the level that they thought they should be. We don't put a lot of emphasis on what's happening to a woman's body as she's going through perimenopause and menopause. The UK, United Kingdom, has a lot more about how the workplace can support women during this transition, rather than make them feel like they should be ashamed. Because if you're a woman, like, oh, you're having your cycle, it's that time for her or whatever. Or she just can't remember things because, her brain's going. Well, the problem is she's not sleeping at night. if you don't get good sleep when you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you can't fall back asleep, that's going to affect the way that you function the next day. And that repeatedly is going to cause irritability. And you're going to snap at your kids and snap at your husband and snap at your coworkers. When we just do a little bit of some hormones or other ways with lifestyle changes, that we can make those hormonal fluctuations less severe and make life, well, I always call it like waves. Like you have tidal waves, you have big, big waves. We're going to make those waves much calmer and much smoother so that when you get to menopause, we can then, if you choose to, be on hormone therapy, and that will keep your cardiovascular system protected. It will help your brain, help your bones, help your vaginal tissues, help a lot of things so that you don't have to be miserable. So once you understand what's happening to your body, and this is a normal thing, right? You're not going crazy and you're not some like isolated person that this is not happening to. This is happening. Every woman who lives to the age of 51 will go through menopause if she lives that long. Now, sometimes it might be 55, sometimes it might be 47, but on average, it's age 51. So woman will be from a reproductive age to a non-reproductive age. But that doesn't mean that this is a time of life where you just like go to into a cave and shut yourself down. This is a time where you can start really living your life and getting the support you need, feeling good without having the brain fog, the night sweats, not sleeping, feeling, like you're like no one's helping you. There's a lot of help out there. It's just looking at the right resources to get it.
Now, your platform emphasizes empowerment and education. You encourage women to be their own advocates, which takes courage and self leadership. What are the most important things women over 40 should know about owning their own health and choices?
I think that women have wonderful intuition. And I think everyone has the ability for intuition, but I think women especially do. And I think if they listen to their bodies and listen to what their mind and body was telling them, rather than shutting that down, that voice of, well, maybe we need a vacation or maybe we can take a break or, like if things are happening to your body that aren't feeling good, listen to it. And then I love journaling too. Journaling is a great thing to do because it really helps clear the mind and say what's really happening. And so I think it's women being more aware of what's happening to them and being confident and how do you say courageous enough to accept that. Like let's say they're not sleeping. Accept that and say, you know what, I'm not sleeping. I'm waking up every night at 3. I feel horrible. And my kids are driving me crazy because they're like in high school and I'm going through perimenopause. So it's all these hormones raging in the house, right? And they're just feeling like there's no help. So I think having help like with the platform and knowing those blog posts. I also have a Facebook group called my Diva group. It's the Women's Wellness Diva group with Dr. Diana Hoppe. And it's a group where we share things and we just have like polls about things like where do you want to travel next on your next retreat? Or what's the worst symptom you had with perimenopause or menopause? And then just really get more community kind of encouragement and hope and realize that you're not alone. This isn't some journey that you have to face and no one's going to help you. There's a lot we can do and make your life to be amazing at 40, 50, 60, 70, and beyond.
You've said women should take inventory of their stress factors, relationships, nutrition, mental well being. How does that self inventory and the advocacy together translate to stronger leadership?
Well, if you take care of yourself, you're going to feel better about your whole being, right? Your mind will be clearer. Your whole like when you think about how the body operates, there's going to be less friction. There's going to be less like negativity. It's going to be allowed for you to really be able to express the things you want to express without having maybe some of the deterrents that if you didn't have good health or weren't able to speak because you don't have the confidence or, because a lot of leaders, if they go through perimenopause and menopause, they may wonder, well, why can't I speak in front of public? Because they might get anxious. A lot of times, anxiety can get very pronounced during perimenopause, as well as depression. And women may like really question themselves, like, why I used to be so good at speaking, or I used to be so good at leadership, and now I'm just finding like I'm, I don't know what I'm doing. I walk into a room and I don't know why I walked into the room. Well, that's a very common thing. And so realizing that these are common things that happen, but then there's things we can do about it is what's really key.
You often write and speak about rediscovering joy and connection, desire and libido at midlife. What role do those factors play in leading a fulfilling next chapter?
So your relationships are very important to your health. So we look at dementia. Okay, a lot of people are concerned about dementia. When you look at one of the main things you can do to help decrease your risk for dementia is having a really good support system. Having people around you that want to live life, do the things you want to do, support you from a positive aspect. Gratitude, another thing that is really helpful. So having that kind of mindset is really important. If you surround yourself with people that are very negative, people who are very judgmental. You're not getting a lot of feedback that's positive. I mean, you're going to go down the spiral that no one would really be able to thrive in, right? So choosing, your relationships and how you can make the relationships you have even potentially better. That could be sometimes challenging depending on what situation you're in. Yet there's always a choice. There's always a choice to say, well, then maybe I'll go out this afternoon and have my husband stay home. He can watch TV, but I'm going to go out and go to a women's group and learn about, paper mache or something, whatever it is, right? Whatever you want to do, and then make that choice and then say when you come back, yeah, he might still be watching the TV, but you at least did some fun things for yourself. You can't control other people. All you can do is control what you have control over, which is you and your reaction to things. So I think sometimes having that kind of sense of independence also helps because you're not under the rule of thumb of what your family dictates you have to do. You can have time and say, you know what, family, I'm going to go away and do this for an afternoon, or maybe I take a weekend to go out with some friends and have a girls' trip or something, because you need that time to recharge. You need the time for your brain to literally be able to function also and eat good food. So sometimes the diet, because we're so busy, we don't have good nutrients. We don't get to eat good food. We go to fast food or whatever we have to potentially need to do. But what you feed your body is also critical. So I go into do a food journal with my patients. I also have a wheel of life I share with my patients that has them, when you say inventory, I don't want it to be like a strict, like they have to stressful type thing. It's more of a snapshot. What's happening in your life right now? Like, how is your relationship with your husband or your partner or significant other? What's your relationship with nutrition? Are you feeling like you're giving your body good things? What about hydration? What about your job, your stress level, your family? All of these things go into your life. It's not just, people say, "Oh, I go to the GYN and she does a pap smear." Well, when they came to me, it wasn't just a pap smear. It was always, we're going to cover everything. And also, we're going to cover your sexual health and we're going to talk about your relationship. And if there's some problems in that area, what can we do to make it better? Right? Because I think having a healthy intimacy in whatever way that means for the couple at whatever age, that is really advantageous also for protection against cardiovascular disease. So having a really good, healthy relationship with your partner, and it doesn't mean that every day you have sex. It means you have good connection. You're feeling like that person loves you and you're being appreciated and that you want to share in, intimacy in whatever way that is. And that is going to help just your own health as well as your partner's health. And that's why I did write the book. I think you mentioned the title, but I'll say it again. It's called Healthy Sex Drive, Healthy You: What Your Libido Reveals About Your Life. And at the time, I was doing clinical trials for a company, and they were looking at low libido in women. And I realized there were no books about what causes low libido in women. There's a lot of things that cause low libido in women, and some of it's hormones, stress, um, self-image, body image, communication, so many things that go into it. It's not just take a little blue pill and you're going to be happy, right? Because it's not necessarily a blood flow issue. It's a very much of a brain and other issue going on.
We're going to take a brief pause. When we return, we'll explore the future Dr. Hoppe is creating and the legacy she hopes to leave behind. Don't go anywhere. We'd love for you to be a part of the Expressions of Leadership community. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and connect with us on Instagram and YouTube at Expressions of Leadership. You're listening to Expressions of Leadership. I'm your host, Michele Kawamoto Perry. Let's dive into what's next for our special guest, Dr. Hoppe. Dr. Hoppe, what is your vision for the next chapter, for yourself, for Amazing Over 40, and for the women you serve?
I think my mission is to really expand to a place where women, where they understand the Amazing Over 40 is like a household name, that they can go to this resource and realize it's there. So I really have more of an audience that can benefit from the things I want to do. And in that, I really see my progression forward as a like a keynote speaker, as someone in a really a speaking form to get the word out, both, nationwide and then internationally, for women to really understand that this is the time. There is no dress rehearsal. This is life. There's not like, oh, well, I'm going to take 10 years and get it back. No, this is pretty much it. And this isn't just like we can pretend it's not really happening, but it is happening. So let's face what's happening in your life and then let's deal with it from a real, compassionate, realistic, straightforward way and make things that seem like completely unsolvable to make them to something that is reasonable. And that's just breaking it down and doing simple, like we said, self-care, encouraging women to really take time for themselves. So I want to do more retreats, more workshops, more keynote speaking so that my word gets out there so that women understand that there are women leaders out there that are there to help them, to be the mentors, to have them realize this life doesn't have to be miserable. Life is supposed to be fun. Yes, there could be tough times. Absolutely. 100% I've been there, I know. But does it always have to be like you're hitting like you're a salmon going upstream? I mean, I've had times where I think, why is this current getting so much more rapid? It seems harder and harder. And then you're like, well, maybe I'm not going the right stream, or maybe I need to take a different route. So I like the salmon in the river thing sometimes because I'm like, okay, those salmon are really trying to spawn, but maybe this doesn't have to be this difficult to get something done. And finding the resources and knowing there's a community of women out there that can really be supportive. And again, you're never alone. That's one of my main keys is that you're not alone. There's ways to make things better. And that's a true passion of mine. And I see that going even further in my next chapter.
You've worked to bridge traditional medicine and holistic care. What does the future of women's health leadership look like to you?
We're in a time that is very, there's a lot of things happening in the world. And I think a lot of women's rights are now becoming, I don't want to be too political here, but they're being taken away. And women's choice for, let's say, abortion or women's rights, women's ability to do the things that they want to do, where we had a lot of advocacy for women's movement. I think we're seeing somewhat of a downplay of that. But that doesn't mean that we can't still be out there with a voice. It's just we have to be perseverant. We have to say, this will end. This will end. And I do believe it will end, and it has to end. I mean, it's trying. It's that salmon going up the river, but you know what? The river eventually will calm down and it's going to be smoother sailing. And we have to just have faith that yes, we'll get through it. We have to still, practice what we preach and know that we have faith that we'll get there and not get too disheartened by the things that happen in the world. I always say, what can I control and what can I not control? I can definitely help things in my own community and make my voice heard in whatever realm I want to do that, and whatever leader I want to follow with that regard too.
As you think about your legacy, what do you hope to leave behind? And what do you hope women will say that you've helped them realize or reclaim?
Legacy. I'd say I would like my legacy to be women under saying she really like, fought for women's health and women's rights and women's self-care, like basically their own integrity from their mind, body, and spirit, to have them understand that they can understand their physiology, they can understand what's happening to their bodies. And once they have that education, they then can make the best choices for their health moving forward. So it kind of includes the being your own advocate, doing, researching the stuff that's actually true from the science, and then also finding the resources that are going to propel you to where you want to go. And don't let anyone take that flame away. The passion you have, keep that passion because so many people can blow out the candle, but you got to find the air that people are helping you keep that candle alight.
Hear, hear. As we wrap up, we like to end on something we call wisdom and whimsy, a segment that blends insight with a touch of playfulness. Stay tuned. By partnering with expressions of leadership, you'll reach an audience of professionals passionate about leadership and growth. For sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at letstalk@expressionsofleadership.com. Welcome back to Expressions of Leadership. I'm Michele Kawamoto Perry here with Dr. Diana Hoppe for our final segment of the show, Wisdom and Whimsy, where we ask our guest one advice question and one fun question. Let's begin with the advice question. You've been through a lot, serious things, but you still bring humor and warmth to your work. How has laughter helped you heal and lead?
Laughter is truly the best medicine. I think we've had different people say that, like Norman Cousins and Patch Adams, who did the movie with Robin Williams. But laughter is necessary because sometimes we take ourselves too seriously and everything is such a big burden and it's such a big deal when sometimes, like I went to the stargazing, I was in Sedona recently and I went to a stargazing uh, session, whatever what we went to, and it was you see the galaxy and you see the constellations and you see all this in the sky and you think all your problems really aren't that amazingly critical. Like if you put it in perspective sometimes, you don't have to take life that seriously. Yes, there are serious moments, but find the laughter, find the fun. Sometimes laugh at the situation, laugh at yourself. I mean, if you could laugh at yourself and say, God, that was this kind of a stupid thing I did, but you know what? I did it. Oh well, moving on. Don't like get down on yourself. Say, okay, well, maybe next time I might rephrase that or do it differently. But it's okay. Again, not perfect progress and just give yourself a break. I've had to learn that about giving myself a break. I would be so hard on myself and say, well, why'd you do that? That was stupid and da da da. And it's like, well, it's part of life. You're learning this, then you pivot, you go to something else. It's not like you've screwed up everything. It's just you choose again, right? It's not like life is such a big burden. It should really be fun and some laughter involved there too. I'm not saying we don't have hard work and we have stressful situations, but laughter, I love to go to a good comedy show. I love to hear a good comedian on TV because it's just basic things that you can laugh at yourself. Laugh at the airport, people what they dress at the airport, or what the flight attendant tells you, or what, little things that can make you happy. And the other thing is like I have a dog. I have a dog, and my dog makes me happy. So little things like pets, they almost like they're smiling. They have their own laughter. So find laughter in whatever ways you can in your life, and that will definitely improve your health. And I think we've seen that through lots of different situations.
And now for the fun question. You get to host a dinner with three women, any era, any background, who embody leadership and grace over 40. Who's at your table? And what's the theme of your conversation?
Wow, that's a good one. I like it. All right, so I'd have to say Oprah would be at my table, Oprah Winfrey. I mean, she came from a very humble upbringing, and now she's one of the most influential women in the world. She would be someone I'd like to like talk to and like, kind of take her brain and see how she was able to overcome a lot of stuff that she did. Going back to like civil, I say when we had the slavery in the United States, Harriet Tubman was always someone I admired, and she helped with the Underground Railroad, helping get slaves freed during that time when that was a huge undertaking. I mean, she risked her life, everything to help other people be freed. And then another person I'd probably say is Eleanor Roosevelt. I really liked how she was in leadership with her husband, and she had this integrity and she had this presence that no one was going to take away her self-esteem and her sense of being good. So the third woman I'd have at the table would be Eleanor Roosevelt. I think she really embodied what we see as a strong leader with her husband, but she had integrity and she had this basic sense of self-esteem. And she said a wonderful quote that I like. It's doing what you feel in your heart to be right. Because no matter what you do, someone's going to always criticize you. But do what you feel in your heart is right. So I think all of these women had in their heart, they did what they felt was right And they establish themselves in history to be magnificent, amazing, empowering women. And I think that would be a really fun dinner conversation.
Well, before we close, where can listeners find you online and learn more about Amazing Over 40?
So my website is amazingover40.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Amazing Over 40. And I also have a personal page they can go to on Facebook. So, and YouTube. I'm also have a YouTube channel and going to be on TikTok. So find me there too.
Well, Dr. Hoppe, thank you for sharing your story and for leading with such honesty, humor, and heart. You've shown us that leadership begins with listening to ourselves and giving permission to slow down.
Absolutely. It was so wonderful to be here with you. It flew by. I can't believe it's been the whole time. But thank you so much, Michele.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Expressions of Leadership. Please visit amazingover40.com for resources and inspiration. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and review the show. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and take good care of yourself. If you haven't done so already, make sure to click on that follow button so you don't miss out on future episodes. Have a guest you'd like us to interview? Questions, ideas, or just want to say hello? You can reach us at letstalk@expressionsofleadership.com or connect with us on Instagram or YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks to our amazing team behind the scenes for making this podcast possible, including our sound engineer, Graham Palmer, and my chief encourager and advisor, Jeremiah Higgins.